While the final sheets are getting to you, let me just introduce the theme. Thank you. When we're looking at these parshas of Yitro and Mishpatim, I think we have to see them as one unit. On the one hand, we have Parshat Yitro, which is really Ma'amad Har Sinai, more about the experience of standing on Har Sinai. And if you're going through the Parsha with Rashi, you're doing a lot of Rashi this week, because Parshat Mishpatim, it covers a lot of Seder and Ezekiel, a lot of Baba Kama, a lot of Baba Tzia, a lot of Sanhedrin, a lot of different Chazal, Torah Shabbat, thank you. But the key to understand, or what is shocking, or not shocking, but maybe challenging, if you were to turn, we all know that phrase, Na'aseh v'nishma. And if you were to ask someone, go and find me Na'aseh v'nishma, and they didn't do Torah b'kidut, they would start looking for Na'aseh v'nishma in Parshat Yitro. But an easy way to remember, which a good friend of mine, Robbie Rothenberg, told me was, it's 24/7. Chapter 24, verse 7 is Na'aseh v'nishma. That's in our Parsha this week. So Na'aseh v'nishma is in this week's Parsha. And though I've done it before, I found something else this week to discuss on that subject of Na'aseh v'nishma. And in addition to that, just before we went away, so my son-in-law was around for Shabbos, and he had this new book from Rav Shagar. Rav Shagar died many years ago with a new book on Rav Kook, which I asked my son to get me, and I was reading it over Shabbos. I'd already prepared shir, because we had kind of busy few days. I prepared shir on Thursday, but I knew what I wanted to speak about, and I saw this beautiful piece by Rav Kook, which I even put for you in English at the end of the shiur, which very much fits in with the theme that we're going to discuss. So we're starting with the Pasuki, chapter 24, Pasuk 7. ויקח ספר הברית ויקרא באוזני העם ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה ונשמע. That's a very famous comment. The people said נעשה ונשמע, but it's also a challenging comment. We will do, and then we will hear. So in Rabbi Sachs' book, he gives three different options, and I took each option and elaborated on that option. So you can see I split them into three. The first, אחד הביטויים המפורסמים ביותר בתורה נטמע בפרשתנו. Probably, besides Shema Yisrael, one of the most famous sentences in Torah is נעשה ונשמע. רבים מאפיינים בו את אמונת ישראל בכללותה, and many would suggest that it characterizes the faith of the Jewish people. So they were prepared to do without knowing anything. Na'aseh will do, v'nishma we'll hear afterwards. Ma pshara u'madua hein chashuvot kol kach, but what is really so important about this phrase? Nitbonen b'shnei pirushim, so he gives two explanations and his own explanation, which I think is a remarkable explanation. Shenitnu lebitui hazeh, ha'echad atik, one is very old, v'hasheni mucha yachasit, and the other is a bit later. Harishon mufia b'Gemara, the first is in the Gemara. על פיו האמירה נעשה ונשמע ממחישה את התלהבותם של בני ישראל ונכונותם המוחלטת לבוא בברית השם עם העשייה. The first is a directive that the preparedness of Am Yisrael to commit themselves to God and His Torah without knowing anything. אמירתם למשה כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה ונשמע בא לפני ששמעו מצווה כלשהי. They hadn't heard one mitzvah. והייתה הצהרה של מוכנות מראש. It's preparedness from the start that we will do whatever we're told to do. מה שאומר מקובל עלינו, whatever God says is agreeable. המילה נשמע מלמדת שהם עדיין לא שמעו, but the word נשמע means they hadn't heard anything, they hadn't heard anything at all. לא את עשרת הדיברות, they hadn't heard the Ten Commandments, ולא את פרטי המצוות, and they hadn't heard any detail that we get in Parshat Mishpatim, a lot of detail in Parshat Mishpatim. They had nothing. הם הסכימו לדרישות עוד לפני שהועלו באוזניהם, they agreed to everything without having heard a thing. עד כדי כך נלהבים היו מעלייתם מהרוחנית העשויה. They were so excited about the lightly spiritual elevation that they were about to receive. קריאה זו, שגם רש"י בפירושו אימץ אותו, היא קשה. It's a very, very hard understanding of the verse. מפני שהיא מחייבת להבין שסדר הזרמים היה שונה מסדר הפרטרים בתורה. Because it suggests that the Torah isn't written chronologically. אירועי פרק כ"ד התרחשו על פירוש זה לפני מעמד הר סיני, because נעשה ונשמע is at the end of Parshat Mishpatim. So if they said it before they heard anything, that means the end of Parshat Mishpatim comes before Parshat Yitro, which means the Torah. The Torah is not written chronologically. V'shmiat aseret hadibot, I'm talking about Perek Kaf. It means it wasn't written in order. You understand, right? They said Na'aseh v'nishma in chapter 24. The Torah is given in chapter 20, which means that what happened in chapter 24 must have happened before the Torah. This means the Torah wasn't chronological, which is what Rashi sustains on many occasions, but the Ramban doesn't. Even Ezra, Rashbam, Ramban, Cholkim, they don't agree with such an understanding. V'ro'im et seder hadvarim b'Torah k'mevater et seder harim, and they don't understand that. They understand that Perek Kafdan comes after Perek Kaf, comes after Perek Kaf. Kaf Aleph. Ledidam na'aseh v'nishma ein perusho na'aseh lifnei shenishma. So the understanding of most of our Rishonim isn't that we're going to do it without hearing. Ela pashut na'aseh v'nishma b'kol Hashem. We will do and we will listen. Meaning, there's not this blind commitment to God because it's in order. They'd already heard a lot of mitzvot. They'd heard most of Seder Nezikim. The Beit HaLevi says something which is extraordinary. Only the Beit HaLevi can say such a thing. It's also a different interpretation of Na'aseh v'nishma. Means it can't be taken literally that we will do and then we will hear because they already heard. So look at the Beit HaLevi. It's an extraordinary comment. And I've edited it a bit. Whenever I put 3 lines, it means I edited. I made it a bit shorter. You should understand, this is such a great deal, even if you don't like the Pshat in the Pasuk, it's an incredible explanation. He says there are 2 different types of learning Torah. Echad kedei leida heya u'ma la'asot. V'im lo yilmad he'ef yekayeh. One is to learn in order to know what to do. One of the ways he poses the question a bit earlier is, what do you mean Na'aseh v'nishma? Go ahead, do it. But you don't know anything, so what are you going to do? So he says, Na'aseh doesn't mean we will do. Na'aseh means we will learn the Torah that will enable us to do. Across the board. Na'aseh means learning Torah, but practical Torah. Where Rav Yoni's words, practical halacha. Knowing, because if you don't know, and everyone is chayav in that form of Torah. Men, women, everyone, because you don't know how to keep a kitchen, how can you possibly invite people to your house? It's kosher. You don't have to do Shabbos. How can you invite people for Shabbos? You have to know the halacha. Everyone has to know the halacha. So, and even if you want to suggest that women aren't chayavot in limud Torah, but they have to learn about the mitzvot they do. Well, you have to know hilchot tefillah, you have to know hilchot brachot, yeah, because that's what you're doing. So he says the word na'aseh means we will learn the halacha that is practical, that is applicable practically to us. וכמות איתר בבית יוסף, סעיף נמזר בשם הרוקח ומשום הכי מברכה I'm not sure what that is. אומנם יש עוד מעלה, but he said that there's something else. One facet of learning Torah is to learn to do. That's na'aseh. What is the second? זהו איתר במנחות דפסריתן שאל בן דמה בן אחותו. בן דמה, who was the niece, who was the nephew of Rabbi Yishmael, he asked Rabbi Yishmael, he said the following to Rabbi Yishmael, the question is how to understand the sentence. Kagon ani, someone like me, shelamati kol HaTorah, that I've learned all of the Torah. Can I learn Greek science? Can I learn Greek wisdom? Find an hour in the day that is not day and night, and then you can learn Greek wisdom. The rest of the time, learn Torah. For those of you who are very tired on a Monday afternoon, there isn't an hour in the day that isn't day or night. It's not saying learn during twilight, that isn't the pshat. But the pshat is that you have to learn. But if you know everything, so why do you have to learn? If you know the halacha, why do you have to learn? So Ben David had already learned all of the Torah that was practically applicable. That was his question. What about any other Torah? כיוון שיודע כל התורה כולה, איך לעשות? ודבר נעשה לאיזה תכלית אינו להמשיך יותר מכפי הצורך לאותו התכלית. I have reached the goal of knowing Torah to its full. I know how to practically run my life halachically. Do I still need to learn? And he says, yes, you do. But מכל מקום חייב מצד עצם המצווה של לימוד תורה. There is a mitzvah to learn Torah. It's our only communication with God. It's our only way of, it's the only written reflection we have of God, or the machshavot of God, or the direction of God. Meaning the purpose of learning Torah is not simply to accumulate knowledge to know what to do practically, is to connect. Probably what Ramchal means when he says Torah meviyah lidei zehirut. Torah brings you to zehirut. Zehirut isn't to do with halacha. It's to do with what? It's to do with a frame of mind. The Beit HaLevi says there's a whole aspect of learning Torah which isn't. Sometimes I'm in the Beit Midrash and the girl says to me, she's finished the sources. I don't know what that means. I mean, I may be slow. I am slow, but I've not finished the sources. I never finish the sources. I look for something else, find something else. There's no end to sources. You never finish the sources, however clever you are. There's always another way to look, another. In my room, if you're interested, I know you're not, it's just a way to try and get you in my room to say hello, but if you come in my room, I can show you like 10 files. 10 files with close to 20 shiurim on each parshat. And every week I sit down and try to do a new Parshat on Klali. There's no end, there's just never an end. The sources I'm reading today, I've never brought before. The Beit HaLevi I've brought before. So it says, Na'aseh v'nishma isn't a commitment, I will do it and then I will hear, because again, the chronological problem is there. The Beit HaLevi says, no, it's Na'aseh. Limud Torah is, I have to learn to know what to do. You have to know what to do. You want to be a fruit Jew, you have to know what to do. You can't just do Isurim all the time. Even to make a cup of coffee on Shabbos, you have to know how to make a cup of coffee on Shabbos. There's so many people, they don't know how to make a cup of coffee on Shabbos. They include Rishon, a cup of tea, they include Rishon, and they just don't know. And people stirring stuff on the platter. Mamash Isurim, serious Isurim. They don't know halacha. So you have to do Na'aseh, you have to know what halacha is. Rothberg is very good at that. He brings in the pots and pans and he shows you what to do, and they're practical halacha, right? But there's nishma, there's a point of learning, even if you know the halacha, there's a point of learning. There is a value to learning for that sake. It's a classic Beit HaLevi comment. If they'd have said nishma v'na'aseh, then it would essentially mean we will listen so that we will know what to do. The fact they said na'aseh v'nishma means what we're going to learn to know what to do. V'nishma, there's an erech in learning for the sake of learning. And that is why, ladies, when you sit in a Beit Midrash and you learn, the way you learn is very, very, very important. Because the way you learn reflects that connection with God. I told some of you a while ago that when I sat a few rows away from Rav Lichtenstein's seat, and I remember watching him learning Torah. It was something out of this world. And I remember on an occasion when a person stood next to him, he had a question to ask for 15 minutes. He didn't even know he was there. It was like watching someone dumb. Which is, I think that's what the Beit HaLevi means. So Na'aseh, you learn the halacha, you need to know the halacha, and Nishma, it is a way of connecting with God. Turn over the page. I don't know whether it is over the page, if you have got it. Go to the second suggestion he gives, which I love. I love the second suggestion. Again, this isn't his suggestion yet, but listen to this suggestion, which I'm not sure you've heard of before, because I don't know, it's very, but okay, whatever. הפירוש השני חורג ממובנה השכיח של מיני נשמע. Sorry? הפירוש השני, not the sheni. So on the bottom of the first page, okay. So, הפירוש השני חורג ממובנה השכיח של המילה נשמע. We normally say nishma is na'aseh, I will do, and then I will learn, okay? בכל זאת הוא פירוש חשוב, but listen to this פירוש, he says, הוא שכיח למדי בהגות היהודית של העת החדשה. It is often repeated in the modern era. על פיו נשמע פירושו נבין. Meaning what? The more I do, the more I understand. Na'aseh v'nishma. If I do more, I understand more. Na'aseh nishma kolomar na'aseh, we will do va'az naveh. I don't know, I give you an example. Try and explain to a non-Jewish person what Shabbat is. What are you going to say? We light candles, we go to shul, we eat. We get up in the morning, we go to shul, we eat. We have a little shlup in the afternoon, learn a bit, we eat. So the person listening to you just thinks this is some kind of eating exercise. When we sleep, we rest. It's not Shabbat, that's not what Shabbat is. Try and explain Seder night to people. We sit at the table and we talk for 3 hours. Oh, just before that we have a little piece of potato. Just a little piece, not a kazai, just a little piece of potato. And then we have horseradish. And then we have bread, which gives you indigestion. And then if you're still hungry, we eat. And then we sing songs after having 4 cups of wine, which we don't really like, and we have to drink a certain amount, and we're a bit tipsy. And that's on our independence. And they go, can't alive. What about Sukkot? It's raining outside, and we build little huts, and we sit there, and we sing. And our neighbours sing, and we try and sing loud, and they sing loud, and then kids come out and they get sweets for giving Divrei Torah. Try and explain it, Yom Kippur. Try and explain Yom Kippur in the Midrash to someone. It says, "Mikan over she'efshar lavin et Torah rak mitocha." The only way you can learn Torah properly is by doing it. Is by being fully immersed in it. It's so much easier to learn smicha when you're actually doing it. Like Shabbat was the hardest but the easiest because I was doing Shabbat every week. And the last time I salted a piece of meat was many years ago when I kashered some liver. And so when you learn Hilchot Menicha, it's very hard, you can't imagine it. And I remember there's a chicken has a I don't know what it's called a kokuban over here, where it stores food. And you talk about it a lot in halacha, and when you actually see it, you get very excited. Oh, that's what the kokuban, that's what it is. Right? You don't know what it is. You didn't know what it was. It's like you see something, you get very excited about it. The Gemara talks about all the time the liver is full of blood, You see a piece of liver, there's any blood there. And then you start learning the halacha properly. But only when you do it, the more you do it, the easier it is. If you keep Shabbos, if you say bracha, if you've done it every day, so you know what Hilchot Tefillah is. If you never do it, so you just learn it in the shul, you don't really understand. Mitoch shmirat ha-mitzvot ba'orach chaim ha-Yehudi. So if you're keeping the mitzvot and you're living a Jewish life, sof machshava b'ma'aseh techila. So that the thoughts come when you do the action makes you do it. And the more you do the actions, the more you na'aseh, the more I do nishma. It's a wonderful perush. Acharei ha'ma'asim nimshachim al-levavot. Our hearts follow our actions. U'mitoch ha'ma'asim ba'ot ha'avana ha'tovana v'ha'pina. And from the actions come the understanding. We should wait a moment. Western civilization has chosen the opposite. We want to know what we're getting ourselves into before we do it. The problem is your understanding of anything is limited. Until you do it, until you live it, until you do it, you don't understand what it is. זו גישה נכונה כשעל הפרק עומדת חתימה על החוזה. Where's Tova Gav? Did you hear Tova? Tova? Look at that. Tell you a story about your sister, okay? Oriana. Well, and in the year of Corona, a group of Australians came late. Your sister was one of them. I think this actually happened to your sister. And this was the first time, it's only 5 years ago, the first time I really understood Shabbat. At that time in Israel, the rule in Israel was that if you have a certain blood test and you have antibodies, you don't have to do isolation. But this group of us, it's about 6 Australian girls came. It was at the end of June, and FTA was still here, but they were going to a Shabbat in Modi'in of Bnei Akiva. And we hired someone to test them for antibodies at the airport. And 4 of the girls got the right results straight away. I think it was Oriana and another girl didn't get results. They didn't get the results. I was on the phone all day with Etty, you'll meet Etty. I was on the phone all day with Etty just to try and get the results. Even once it was too late for them to get Modi'in, At least I'd be able to walk around the Rova. The other girls agreed they would stay here with them for Shabbos because they didn't want to leave them on their own. And I had food and everything arranged. I was on the phone to a minute after the official time of Shabbos, just trying to get them out of isolation. And I ran out of time. The end of the story, which I'll tell you, is that they just got the wrong passport numbers, and so they couldn't match it up until after Motzei Shabbos. It was a technical hit. And the whole day was lachatz. It was just me and Etty, lachatz on the phone, trying to get hold of them, trying to just get them out of isolation all day. And then Shabbos came in. I just had to put the phone down, and nothing I could do. It's over, right? And Rav Hirsch says the point of Shabbos is to understand that man doesn't control the world. Man isn't created, therefore Melachot on Shabbos is creativity. So I had to turn my computer off, I had to put my phone down. And for the first time in my life, I understood what Shabbos. I couldn't do it anymore. I was okay because I knew they had food and I had a madricha. I knew they were okay. But just that understanding you can't do everything and you have to stop. And I couldn't worry about it even because there was nothing I could do. So when you live it, you practically are, not in business, and I've never had to deal with money in those ways, but Shabbos comes in, you just stop. Why do people fall asleep in shul on Friday night? Not because of the rabbi, because they have to stop. They have to stop, or when they stop, they have no worries, so they relax, and they automatically get very tired, because the tension is gone. The tension of the week's gone. Why? Because you're only a human being. That's all. You're only a human being. So stop. But if you don't understand that, if you don't do that on Shabbat, you'll never ever understand what Shabbat is. So Naaseh, you do it, and it took me so many years to understand that, and I practically done. I'm pretty sure it was his sister. I'm pretty sure, another guy, two of them. No one's fault, someone's fault, we wrote down the wrong number, but not their fault. And it was just that meta, you're trying, and they realized, okay, but you can't. So you can't. So it's Naaseh, then it's not. קנייה של טלפון נייד חדש או רכישת מינוי למשהו הכי שגויה כשמדובר בקבלת מחויבות קיומית עמוקה. הדרך היחידה להבין מנהיגות היא להנהיג. The only way to understand leading is to lead. I don't know how many teachers you've had who are doctors in education and couldn't teach a rhinoceros. I've seen so many teachers. None of my teachers have I ever checked their CVs. Their CV is can they teach. That's all. I never check what their. I don't care what their degrees are. It makes no difference. They can teach or they can't teach. That's it. So you can learn about leadership all your life, but if you've never led, you're not going to be a leader all your life. I've been to Poland 40 times, and people say to me, "Well, did you do a course?" I didn't do a course. I've just been there 40 times. That's what I've done. So הדרך היחידה להביא נישואין, and the only way you will ever understand marriage is by getting married. You won't understand it before. You'll talk about it and you'll say, and you'll have color lessons and everything. You won't understand it till you get married. Am I right tomorrow? For sure. And you'll never understand Sfardim until you marry a Sfardim. You never understand Sfardim until you marry a Sfardim.
Even after that.
הדרך היחידה להבין אם עשו מצוי מסוים מתאים לך היא לעלות עליו ולסוב. The only way you'll ever understand anything, ladies, is by trying it. And if you don't try it and you're waiting for some kind of click, it will never happen. It's a rule of thumb. Na'aseh v'nishma. You do stuff and you learn how to do it. You take the plunge and you learn how to do it. People who sit on the fence and they don't know how to understand, how to make a decision. God law, how many times Talmidot have said to me, I need to know 100% that he's right. You're never going to get married, lady. You'll know it's 100% right after 50 years of marriage. That's when you'll know. You're not going to get married till you know it's 100% right. What do you think? It's a Hollywood film? What do you think it is? You have to take the plunge. You have to do it. Life will pass you by and you won't make any decisions. You have to jump in the deep end. You have to do it with a certain amount of caution and logic. But you'll never understand until you do it. You'll never understand until you do it. It's one of the hardest things for me in my life has been trying to bring up sons who are warriors when I was never a warrior. I drove a Jeep. I looked after dead soldiers. So my sons are warriors, they're fighters. I'll never understand that. I've never fought a Hamas murderer face to face. I've never done that. So it's hard for me to teach my children. They haven't done it. Now I say, if you do something, let me show. הדרך היחידה להבין אורח חיים היא להתחיל לחיות בו. It's such a critical, the only way. And if you just arrived in the Midrash and you think, oh my God, because you're very religious, so you're always thinking, oh my God. And you're thinking like each day is 5 years, and how do I get through this? And these other girls here must be like, there must be something wrong with them. Wow. They laugh at my jokes, there must be something wrong with them. But the more, you understand, the rule of thumb is the more you do, the better it gets. No one got anywhere in this Midrash by hiding the bedroom. Ever. The only way it works is by plunging. The only way it works. And we've all done it. We all did this. ההחלטה להסיק בתנאי חוסר ענות. נעשה ונשמע פירושו. איפה נעשה בסוף על סמך ניסיון ממושך. It's beautiful page. I do. And then I will understand. But the third page for me is the reason I'm giving the shit. Because it's a source I have never given before. The other two sources I've dealt with before, not through Rabbi Sachs, but this source is, it's so wonderful. This source is like a brochure from Midrash Haron. It's a PR for Rabbi Bigman. He said, you see what he says here, you see this piece of rough book at the end, which was Midrash Haron, just fell in front of me. Just fell in front of me on Shabbos morning. And then it ruins my Shabbos, right? Because I think I'm going to forget to put it in the shit. The first thing I did after Shabbos, because I gave leave of the shir on Thursday, I said, you didn't print the shir right? She said, no. I said, I got something to add. She said, add away. So I added away. So we'll get there in a minute. בחינת כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה ונשמע שהתירו נעשה ונשמע. לכאורה אי אפשר להבין על דבר כלל איך אפשר לעשות קודם שישמעו. האמת שהתורה שיבחה אותם על זה שמקודם שחתם להשם רק התירו נעשה ונשמע כבר בברית. אבל אף על פי כן קשה אבל מאוד איך יוצא עניין זה, ואיך עולה על הדעת לעשות קודם נשמע. אך באמת בתורה גופם, I'll start translating when it becomes relevant, נמצא שאמרו משהו מהשם יעשו. It's written, did I not blog this? What I told you? Oh, it's Rabbi Nachman, sorry. Now go over the page from Rabbi Nachman to Rabbi Nachman just says to the point, I'm going to have Sachs, the third idea, because I don't want to miss out. If we have time to go at Rabbi Nachman, here is the idea we spoke about that you understand by truth, okay? Go to Rav Sachs in the third. I want to give you a third perush. Okay, we have Naaseh v'Nishma, there's two types of learning, right? Naaseh, the learning for doing, and the learning for learning. The second one is Naaseh, the more we do, the more we will learn. So what is the third suggestion? Have a look. Birsoni, this is Rabbi Sachs' suggestion, I never heard this before. שונה למדי, המתבסס על כך שבספר שלו כתובים בני ישראל מאשרים את הברית שלוש פעמים. There are 3 times, and that's why you could be mistaken to think that Naaseh v'Nishma is written in Parshat Yitro. Because Naaseh is written in Parshat Yitro twice. Look at the Psukim. פעם אחת לפני ששמעו את הדיברות, they said Naaseh before they heard the dibrot. פעמיים אחר כך and twice afterwards. But there's Hevdel Meratek, there is a mind-blowing difference בין שני התיאורים הראשונים לבין התיאור השלישי. Between the first 2 and the third. Now you have to follow the psukim here, okay? The first time is in Yud Tet Chet in Parshat Yitro. ויענו כל העם יחדיו ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה. The people came together and they all said, we will do. You see that pasuk, okay? That's in Pasuk Yud Tet. The second is in this week's parasha. ויען כל העם כל אחד. Again, everyone said together, כל הדברים אשר דיבר השם נעשה. We will all do what God said. Okay, so it's written twice. We will all do what God said. We will all do what God said. It's written twice. Look at our pasuk. ויקח ספר הברית ויקרא בו אוזני העם. כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה. It doesn't say everyone. It just said, they said, נעשה ונשמע. But the 2 psukim that say נעשה, everyone said. And the one pasuk that says Naaseh v'Nishma, they said. But it doesn't say everyone. Now look at what he does with this. שני המעלות הראשונים, the first two psukim that just say נעשה, שיש בהם נעשה ואין בהם נשמע, there's no נשמע, נאמרו פה אחד על ידי כל העם. Everyone said them together. Everyone said נעשה. הוא ענה כל אחד. They all answered with one voice. והנה בפעם השלישית, and on the third time, זו שיש בה גם נשמע, where it also says נשמע, באופן יוצא דופן בשלישייה שלנו, is different from all of our psukim. Well, you're all looking at them, so I'll say hello as well. Hello. It's been a long time. 5 years. You look the same.
Thank you.
I know. It's all right, I don't want to do that, it's fine. I'm reminded sometimes by certain students. So again, go back to the first pasuk says Naaseh, the second pasuk says Naaseh, and that's everyone. This is what he says, this is my word. The third pasuk says Naaseh v'nishma, it doesn't say everyone. Please listen to this, this is massive. באופן יוצא דופן בשלישייה של אין אזכור מפורש של כל העם כולו אמר זאת. It doesn't say that everyone said נעשה ונשמע. It doesn't say that. לפועל נשמע יש כמה מובנים רבים, because there are many different ways to understand Torah. יש לו מובן מעשי. There are practical ways to understand Torah. There's שמיעה בקול וציור. There is a way just to do what you're told. שכבר מוזר במילה נעשה. אך יש לו גם מובנים נוספים, there are many other ideas in Torah, חשובים לא פחות, but are not less important, שאינם כלולים בנעשה, they're not part of נעשה. אלא מתחדשים לנו מן הפועל נשמע, they are from נשמע. There's only one נעשה, there's only one שולחן ערוך. There are loads of נשמע. There are loads of ways of thinking in Judaism. להאזין, to listen, לשים לב, להבין, לקלוט, להפנים, להיענות. הפועל נשמע באיפה להוסיף לצד מעמד המעשי של היהדות, המעמד הרוחני הפנימי שלה. נעשה is what we do, and we're all meant to do the same thing as one Shulchan Aruch. נשמע is what we think, and you can think whatever you want. Because we're different people, we're different neshamas. המסקנה הנובעת מכך חשובה. היהדות כקהילה, as a community, we are a community of doing. קהילה של עשייה. Not of listening. Because we all listen, we all hear something else. Everyone in this room is hearing something else, is what I said. I said something yesterday in quest for authenticity into my misery. 90% of the girls totally got the wrong, listened to the wrong stuff. Even though I was very clear on what I said. They listened to the wrong stuff. 90% of the girls, such an important message, and they heard the rubbish in the message. So different people hear different things. There are a few girls who listen carefully and heard it properly. לא של שמיעה, היא כפופה כולה לכל סמכותי. הלא הוא הלכה. בכל הנוגע להלכה, whenever you talk about הלכה, העשייה על פי יהדות, אנשים אומרים, there's only one halacha, there's only orthodoxy, that's what it is, there's only one halacha. The consensus, that's the consensus. לעומת זאת, but in stark comparison, אף שגם לאמונה יהודית יש עקרונות, even though we have certain principles, בכל הנוגע לרוחניות, אין ביהדות גישה נורמטיבית יחידה. There are many different ways. I wondered, I tried to check it up, I couldn't find a proof. You know, there were certain rabbanim who wanted to burn Moreh Nevuchim. There was a Rashbam who wanted, not the Rashbam, a different Rashbam who wanted to burn Moreh Nevuchim because it was very, very challenging philosophically and remains challenging philosophically. The church eventually burnt Moreh Nevuchim. Rabbi Nachman said not to learn Moreh Nevuchim. So why is the Rambam on everyone's table in the Beit Midrash? The halacha of the Rambam is on the table in everyone's Beit Midrash. Because when the Rambam wrote halacha, everyone knew who he was. Because he told them what the halacha was. You can think all over. You've got to think, you've got to be open to thoughts and go in every direction. But the halacha is one halacha. And that's why people find it so difficult to understand. I think one of them is a Shlomo's rabbi in the school. And his thoughts are all over the place. And you have to be a mature adult to understand it. To understand that someone can have loads of thoughts, but the halach, he keeps every Mishnah Berurah, every single Mishnah Berurah. And Rabbi will talk to you about prayer. Go watch another minute. He'd like to be like Rabbi Yodi. So, Naaseh is one. Nishma. It has to go around. Yesh b'yadut kohanim, v'yesh b'neviim. There are kohanim and there are neviim. So beautiful. He writes about this in a few places. Yesh bo rationalistim, umistikanim. You have a frani and you have a Rav Sussman. They don't have to do with each other. But they're already on timetable because Nishma is everyone and everything. And the more the merrier. The more the merrier. Philosophy, you have philosophy, and you have Patanim, and you have poets. HaTanakh medabed b'ribui kol. The Tanakh speaks in many, many voices. Yeshayahu ain't Yechezkel, so you know Yeshayahu is not Yechezkel. Sefer Mishpatim מבטא תפיסה רוחנית אחרת מזה העולם, מעמוס והושע. Mishnah is different from Amos and Hosea. בתורה יש מצוות וסיפורים, היסטוריה וחזון, מיסטי, טקס ותפילה. The Torah is full of everything. It's heterogeneous, the Torah. The halakha is one. Naaseh is b'kol echad. Nishma is many things. We have to be able to think in many ways. היא מציבה נורמות רבות הקובעות מה צריכים יהודים לעשות, אך מעטות פה נורמות הקובעות איך יהודים צריכים לחשוב. See what he says? There's a particular norm how we should behave, but no one tells us how to think. We're meant to be able to think across the board. Our minds have to be open to think thoughts. The action is one action. This is such an important point. Read that sentence again. Normot rabot hakovot mas shechim yemitim la'asot. There are fixed precedents of what we should do. Ach ma'atot ba hanormot hakovot ech yodim shechim la'ashov la'agish. There are very few norms of how we should feel and how we should think. אנחנו חווים את אלוקים בדרכים שונות. Every single one of us in this room feels God in a different way. In a different way. And it's fine. It's fine. יש החוקשים אותו בטבע. Some people are blown away by God when they learn biology. I was. אחרים עושים אותו ברגש הבין אישי, some in interpersonal relationships. בחוויות אהבה, some in relationships of love. ולכן קיבל רבי עקיבא אומר שאם זכו הבעל והאישה שכינה ביניהם. The husband and wife reach the highest level God is with them. Each person feels God, and there's no way to feel. It doesn't matter what someone else feels. It just matters what you feel. We all have to do the same thing. That's Naaseh. About Nishma isn't kol echad. It's not one voice. Because we're all different neshamot. We're all different people. And nothing wrong. You don't have to think the same way. Adarabah, if you're forced to think the same way, then where's your neshama gone? But what are you? A robot? We do. We have to have one halakha for one people. So some people, they find God by reading a nevuah. Other people sit in front of a Gemara and they sit in front of a Gemara, and some people look at Gemara and they start having trauma attacks. And there's a tosser, don't put another tosser on. What does he want? Who cares what it says in that? Well, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? And some people sit with a Rashi and have a great time with Rashi, and some people like a Ramban. So what do you care? It doesn't matter. Nishma is across the board. This is like the ethos of this school. I never saw it before. So I'm very happy with it. Some people find God in dancing. Some people shira, like Jeremy. The shira, they sing. And sing, and sing, and sing, and sing, and sing, which leads me to nine. So, and some people, like me, sit there going, and every so often I get an elbow, why don't you sing? So some people like it we sing, some people don't. Some people get excited at Smirot on Friday night, and some people less excited. I don't get so excited going on WhatsApp all my night. Okay, that's nice. I get excited, my wife gets excited. So each person something else. And you can be something else. You can be something else. Because David HaMelech, but David HaMelech is dancing with the Aron to Yerushalayim. אחרים או אותם אנשים עצמם בזמנים אחרים עושים אותו במעמקים. בדמעות, some people find God in tears. Some people get close to God in a ghetto. Not mentioning anyone particularly, but some people find it's fine, the Nishma is different. So you understand, it's incredibly important. Now, I have to tell you, ladies, that go to the Gemara on the next page. I think it's on the next page. Because it's an interesting Gemara. Up to here, I'll show you the piece that the Maharal, that Rav Kook adds. So the Gemara of Zara says, "Ein adam lomed Torah ela mimakom shelibo chaveis." That is our ethos. You only learn Torah when you enjoy it. You have to enjoy. That's why we have 80 electives. I don't have to sell the program. You're here, right? But we have 80 electives, so that every and we have different teachers. So you don't want to hear my Musa, you'll go and hear Rab Bailey, and he'll tell you where the comma is. And then you'll go and hear Miriam, and she'll tell you about white shade. You go wherever you want to go, right? And Adam lomed ela b'makom shelibo chafetz. Only where your heart wants to be. Shene'emar ki b'torat Hashem chefso. And listen to the story, and without going deeply into the sugi, you'll see how the story is a problem. A person only learns where their heart is. Now look at the Gemara. Levi Rabbi Shimon ben Rebbe. So Levi and Rabbi Shimon ben Rebbe is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's son. Yeshvu lifnei Rebbe. They're sitting in front of Rebbe. V'hayu poskim sidra. They were learning something. Because shekamu sefer echad, they finished the book they were learning. Amar Levi navi et sefer Mishli. I want to learn Mishlei. I want to learn Mishlei. Rabbi Shimon ben Rebbe Amar navi. No, I want to learn Tehillim. I want to learn Mishlei. I want Tehillim. Fine. Rebbe Echriya. Rebbe decided. Fiyana Levi. He forced Levi. And they brought Tehillim. Levi wanted to learn Mishlei. And he forced him, and they brought Tehillim. The Rebbe said, his maskana is, Ein Adam lomed Torah ela mimakom shelibo chafetz. And you learn that Gemara, you think it doesn't make sense. I mean, Rebbe forced Levi to learn something he didn't want to, and then he comes out with that sentence, a person only learns where they want to learn. But he forced him to learn something else. So what's Pshat? So the Pshat that I understand, which is written underneath here, is he saw that Levi couldn't learn. He forced Levi to learn Tehillim, he wanted to learn Mishlei, and therefore he concluded, no, I should have let him learn Mishlei. It's the only way I could learn that Gemara, right? I should have let him learn Mishlei, because I forced him to learn Tehillim, and he didn't want to learn Tehillim. That happened to me many, many years ago in the Midrashah, when I had someone work with me called Chana Shiur. We were working together here, and we had things you don't know, even though I've had 3 young wives. Even though they knew, but before your time. And what I had in the mornings was, I might be in your time, I had 2 mornings of Chumash, and in the afternoon it was Tanakh. Different Tanakh, but it was all Tanakh. And then 2 mornings of Gemara, and the afternoon was Halakha. Because I was pig-headed and I said, girls have to learn Tanakh, they have to learn Halakha. I'm not. And then Chana said to me, but if someone doesn't learn Halakha, she's not turning up all the afternoon. So what have you got? So she said, mix and match. So then I started mixing and matching. And then we got to where we are today, where there's lots of mix and match in the afternoon. But essentially, the plain way to learn this Gemara is that Rebbe forced Levi to learn something he didn't want to learn. It didn't work, and he came to the maskana. A person has to learn what they want to learn, which is exactly Rabbi Sachs' point. Now, out of the blue here, I opened up this book that my son got for me on Rav Kook, Shagar on Rav Kook, and I saw the following 2 paragraphs. So instead of complicating ourselves with the Hebrew, have a look at the English here. And see how Rav Kook summarizes it at point. And Rav Kook here is talking from his song. He's talking about himself. You have it in English. It says, "What shall I do? In what shall I be occupied? Is a semi-uniform occupation without variety suited to me? Or is it a leaping, shifting, changing, and wandering occupation that befits me? To this question, I need no solution. My unfitness for a fixed, uniform, and unvaried occupation is beyond all doubt. But the wandering occupation is also not suited to me. Just as I find in myself an incapacity for constancy and monotony, so too I find within myself a complete aversion to fragments, to brokenness, to the unbalanced and unmethodical. I must conclude then that I am monotonous in spirit and manifold in soul. That's exactly what Rabbi Sat said. Naaseh v'nishma. Monotonous in my spirit, meaning Naaseh, I do the same halacha. Manifold in my soul, nishma. It's the same, no? I can't just put it in my lap. Well, you can imagine how I had to wait till the end of Shabbos to put this into Shikha. That is to say, I process method and harmony in my ideals, while my deeds and my artistic activity draw from everything and incline towards all opposites. That is my aspiration and the finest of my desires. This is so fundamental. I suppose it should be the first year I give at the beginning of the year. Now, see the second comment. You have the sources. It is a very difficult matter for me to occupy myself with matters of halacha alone, and with matters of agadah alone, with what is revealed alone, or what is hidden alone. Likewise, it is difficult for me to incline in thought only toward a path of simple faith, or only towards a path of inquiry and reason, only towards a disposition of solitude, or only towards a disposition of fellowship and sociability. For all the currents rule within me, faith and investigation, nationalism, morality, halakha and agadah, the revealed and the hidden, criticism and poetry. I must absorb them all. And out of the unity of the exalted heights, I go forward, step by step, to cleave to God in truth, and to raise the holy light of the congregation of Israel in thought, Naaseh, and in deed, Nishma. The other way around, actually. To the source of its life. It's absolutely phenomenal. That's such an important message. So we have the fundamental understandings of Naaseh v'nishma. For this chidush of Rabbi Satz, which is mirrored by Rav Kook, was before, of course, Rabbi Satz. It's so important. Hakol, that everyone says Naaseh, we all do Naaseh. We're bound by halacha. That, by the way, I think is a gadlut of Rav Soloveitchik. Rav Soloveitchik comes on a very, very strong line. Supreme Talmidei Chachamim. But none of his predecessors opened the books that he wrote. I don't know whether you've ever done. Have you ever read Rav Soloveitchik in its original? Have you ever heard him speak? He speaks like a Polish Indian. You'd think he would have this Oxford accent with all these long words which are longer than your arm, which he looked up in Webster's dictionary to make his work so perfect in English, and he speaks like a Polish Indian. He comes from a line of Gedolei Olam, and he started with the Naaseh. Now, that's what makes him still a Gadol for the Torah. But the Nishma is all over the place. The holy man of faith. Halachic man, it's all over the place. But just like the Rambam, you have more in the book, it's all over the place. But if you want to know who the Rambam was, open up the Mishpatim. The Rambam was totally orthodox, more than any of us have ever been. And he's one of those understandings in Judaism which is complex but critical to know that we do what we have to do. But we can never lose our neshama. We can never lose who we are, our thoughts, and the directions that we take. I have just your parents here. So let me say something on behalf of the Midrashah about the Madrichot, who are representing parents and family. Shoshi, you could pretend. They're coming, no? Nothing, brother? I never met your brother. I heard a lot about your brother from our interview on criminology in Buria many years ago. Certain interviews you never forget, and he's here, Dad Shoshi. So I would like to tell you something about you. Get rid of numbers about your daughter, and you can spread it to all the other parents as well. So I actually know Ashira's family name, but I don't know any of the, well, I know Shoshi's, but I don't know any of the Madrichot surnames, and I had a shot on that once. You see, the history of surnames, ladies, is that people didn't really use family names, if you know what surname is. They didn't use surnames. But if there are two Davids, how do you know which David they're talking about? So often they define them by trade. David Milstein, works with a millstone. But the millstone I work with was without an E and out a double L, okay? I work with a millstone. If you have a Schreiber, so he wrote, right? He's a software, he wrote. If you have a Sandler, he worked with shoes. Or you can have someone who's named after the place they came from. You can have Tikachina, you can have someone who's Bialystok, and they are defined because you don't, there are two Davids that don't need to know where they're from. So I've got this chat with my Michot. I don't know their surnames because they don't have one trade, they do everything. So I don't know their surnames. Because their surnames aren't relevant, because there aren't enough surnames in the dictionary to name them Michot, because they just do everything. What am I going to call them? Terem? I'm going to call them bringing food to your room? Am I going to call them, I don't know, there's so many things that they do. So I think that's a credit. Madrichot are all of our Madrichot. Sometimes Madrichot become I want all the parents to, you can tell them. I want all the parents to shed laughters because it's an incredible thing. The Midrash could not run without Madrichot or without Imam So I just wanted to know. I don't know what Zaks means actually, but it's a place, not Milstein. So I want to, in their absenteeism, because they're not all here, they're probably with their parents, so I want to thank the Madrichot on your behalf, who really had this great idea of having an evening for the Madrichot, their parents, and so I'm celebrating with them tonight. Don't take the food from 7, okay? Na'aseh v'nishma. Have a good evening.